If you want to build the cheapest PC around the new RTX 5070 Ti within reason, then you came to the right place. When I mean within reason, is that you are building the cheapest PC around the 5070 Ti that will not bottleneck this graphics card. That way you can enjoy your gaming experience with this new Nvidia graphics card without any bottlenecks, stutters, FPS drops, or any potential issues. Of course, I'll show you the level of gaming performance that you can expect with this system at different monitor resolutions and also different types of games. The link to this exact gaming PC will be down below in the video description with the latest prices and availability in your region. My name is Valentino. That being said, let's start. For the CPU, you get the AMD Ryzen 5 7600. This is one of the best value CPUs in the entire market today, and it has been the best value CPU for a long time now, in my opinion. This CPU will not bottleneck the RTX 5070 Ti, and it's actually very fast. If you want to play esports games like Valorant or Fortnite at 1440p, you will be able to average high FPS with this CPU alongside the 5070 Ti, and I'm talking about over 240 FPS at 1440p and possibly even 360 plus FPS depending on the esports game. So if you want, you can easily fit a 360Hz or 240Hz 1440p monitor to play these esports shooters. And of course, if you play at 1080p, you can expect even higher frame rates. The good thing about this CPU is that it doesn't require a ton of cooling, and that's why I went with an aftermarket CPU cooler that's about 18 USD, and it has great aesthetics and RGB design, and it's going to be perfect with this Ryzen 5 processor. Then you also get a capable motherboard for this CPU with Wi-Fi included, which is always a big plus. Then if you were wondering how this PC performs in streaming, well, you get 32 gigs of DDR5 memory, so the streaming performance is going to be perfectly fine. It's also really good for content creation and productivity work, and for gaming, 32 gigs of RAM is the sweet spot. Then you get a 1TB SSD that you can always upgrade to 2TB if you ever need more storage, and for the graphics card, of course, we get the RTX 5070 Ti. Performance-wise, the RTX 5070 Ti is actually similar to the RTX 4080 and 4080 Super, so in terms of gaming performance, you can expect very high FPS at 1440p resolution, even in the most high demanding titles out there, high to ultra settings, and then you can also expect a very solid level of gaming performance at 4K resolution. If you have a 4K monitor, you can play high demanding games as well. One thing that I must say is that if you have more money to spend, I would recommend you upgrading the CPU, especially if you play high CPU demanding games for you to achieve higher frame rates. I will leave those CPU recommendations down in the video description as well. Then in terms of aesthetics, you get a micro ATX DIY PC. I really like the design of this case. It comes with 3 pre-installed fans, so plenty of airflow for this system, and overall a really good price. And we'll be talking about pricing in just a second. And last but not least, for the 5070 Ti, you want a reliable power supply, and that's why I went with a Thermaltake 850 watt 80 plus volt power supply. This one is very reliable, and you get 850 watts, so you get room for some upgrades down the line. Let's say you want to go from a Ryzen 5 to a Ryzen 7 or even Ryzen 9 processor. Having an 850 watt power supply is going to make your life easier, because when you upgrade, you will not have to upgrade your entire power supply. Now, the price for this system is about 1350 USD, which is honestly a very good deal considering that you get the 5070 Ti. Now, it's gonna come down to whether or not you can get the 5070 Ti at MSRP, because the price for the 5070 Ti here is 750 bucks. But again, it heavily depends on whether or not you're able to get this price for this new graphics card. If not, then the price might be higher, but it's all going to depend on the exact model of the graphics card and also the pricing and availability by the time of watching this video. That's why if you want to check the latest pricing for this system, I highly recommend you checking the links down in the video description. And then if you have more money to spend, I do recommend you upgrading your CPU, especially if you play high CPU demanding games. Let's say you want to play at 1080p resolution games like Fortnite, for example, competitive settings, or maybe you want to play games like Hogwarts Legacy or Cities Skylines. These games require a ton from your CPU, especially if you're playing at 1080p or even 1440p depending on the game. So if that's you, then I do recommend you upgrading the CPU to something like a Ryzen 7 7700 or or ideally a 9700X. This will give you extra cores and slightly faster performance, again, especially for those high CPU demanding games. If you got lost, don't worry, because down in the video description you will also find better CPU alternatives in case you have more money and you want to upgrade. Regardless of that, if you want to go with the cheapest version with the Ryzen 5 7600, then I do think that it's a great CPU and you are getting a very good deal overall with this system, considering that you can play any game at 1440p ultra settings with no issues, and you can also run games at 4K without any issues as well. One thing I must say is that I wouldn't recommend you buying any gaming PC that's cheaper around the 5070 Ti, especially if that requires you to downgrade the CPU. I believe that the Ryzen 5 7600 is just fine with the 5070 Ti, but if you go lower, let's say you want to go with a Ryzen 5 5600 for example, or i5 12400F, then you are most likely going to bottleneck the 5070 Ti. Of course, it will depend on the game and the settings, because if you want to play games like Cyberpunk 2077 on ultra settings, even the Ryzen 5 5600 might be fine, but for most games, you are going to be limiting the 5070 Ti's performance by going with a lower tier CPU. And last but not least, if you are looking for personal PC help and you want me to help you out, then the top link in the description is my personal PC help. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.